Retro Road Test, BMW 525, E34, vs Rover 827, 1992 UK spec. Rate this. Were very different ways to make a large executive saloon in the early 1990s. The BMW 525, E34, is the Teutonic, rear-drive, straight-six archetype, engineered, a little severe, and entirely sure of itself. The Rover 827 is the British attempt at premium, clever packaging, a smooth Honda-built V6 up front, and enough charm and cosseting to persuade you it's an alternative to the German badge. This test compares them in the way most people in 1992 would: looks, comfort, engines, how they behave when you drive them, where the M25 meets the B-road, practicality, running costs, and finally, the verdict, with a small portion of gentle mockery to keep everyone awake. Summary headline: the BMW is the specialist's choice, superb driving balance, strong mid-range, and that BMW correctness. The Rover is the agreeable family carrier with surprising verve from its V6, a cosseting cabin, and better value for those who prefer a softer touch. What we're driving: short spec box. BMW 525, 1992, 2.5-litre M50 inline-six, 189 bhp, almost equal to 192 PS, and roughly 245-250 Nm, rear-wheel drive, 5-speed manual or 4 forward/5-speed automatic options. Rover 827, 1992, 2.7-litre Honda-derived V6, C27O, about 167 bhp, almost equal to 169 PS, and roughly 225 Nm, front-wheel drive, transverse V6, 4-speed automatic was common, manuals available in some markets. 0-62 miles per hour around 8.2 seconds, top speed almost equal to 133 miles per hour. Those headline numbers tell half the story. The BMW's extra horsepower and torque across the mid-range gives it a brisk, linear shove. The Rover's V6 feels eager and musical, but it's a touch less potent on paper. On the road, the differences are more about disposition than raw figures. Brief context: where they sit in 1992. BMW's E34 5 Series was the company's core executive car, grown up, technically solid, and desirable. By 1992 the 5 Series had moved to the newer M50 engines with single variable valve timing on later variants. The 525 sits neatly between the everyday 520 and the more serious 530. Rover's 800 series began life as a project with Honda involvement in the 1980s, and by the early 90s it had been facelifted, gaining credibility and some quality improvements that made it a genuine contender to the German cars in the minds of many buyers. The 827 used Honda's robust 2.7-litre V6, the same basic family of engines that gave the Rover good manners and refinement. Advertisement. Privacy settings. So, BMW sells precision and a sporting edge. Rover sells comfort, value, and easy-to-like character. Exterior styling and presence. The BMW's lines in 1992 are unmistakable. The E34's formal, slightly angular silhouette is modern without being flashy. The bonnet is long for a 5 Series, the kidney grille is authoritative rather than flamboyant, and if you like the look of a car that refuses to be overly sentimental, the 525 does a good job. E34s wear their purposeful panels like a well-cut suit. It's the sort of car that says, "I know what I am," and expects to be taken seriously. The Rover 827, particularly in sterling or Vitesse trim, has a softer, more curvaceous profile. There's a hint of the classic British formal saloon about it, but with enough modern cues to keep it out of the cardigan and tray-back era. The Rover tends to look friendlier in the car park, the BMW looks slightly severe. If your neighbors judge you on the basis of the forecourt, the Rover will get a smile, the BMW a respectful nod. Interior and ambience. Stepping into a BMW 525 is an experience of measured ergonomics. Controls fall readily to hand, the driver-facing dash is reassuringly Germanic and the seats are typically supportive. Materials are solid, the switchgear has a weight to it. It's a car that prefers you to sit properly and drive it like you mean it. Rover's interior is cosseting, soft upholstery, especially in higher spec sterling form, wood veneers, and a little more sense that the car is there to wrap you in comfort. The dashboard is more traditionally laid out, and the Rover likes to give the impression that nobody is in a hurry. There's also better rear legroom in many 800 variants. If you ferry adults in the back more than you chauffeur yourself, the Rover often feels the more pragmatic choice. On refinement, the Rover's cabin is quieter at low speeds thanks to the transverse V6's insulating packaging, but at higher revs the BMW's straight-six hum is a more characterful companion. Controls, ergonomics and practicality. Both cars are straightforward. The BMW's steering wheel and stalks position are classically driver-centric. The gearshift, manual, is slick and precise. The BMW's chassis and pedal placement reward spirited inputs with predictable feedback. The Rover's driving position is higher, the steering is more relaxed and the shifter, in manual form, is typically lighter though not as crisp as the BMW. The Rover's boot is generous and the cabin layout makes family life easy, door bins, glove box space and some thoughtful little cub aisles. Practicality is Rover's quietly successful party trick. Engines and gearboxes, what they feel like. BMW 525, the 2.5-litre M50 inline-six is a linear, smooth unit that loves revs but is also very tractable at low engine speeds. The quoted output for 1992 is about 189 bhp, almost equal to 192 PS, and torque in the region of 245–250 Nm, which gives the 525 a solid shove through the mid-range and makes motorway overtakes entirely unthreatening. The engine's silky characteristics are part of the BMW charm. When you apply cruise control cruising speeds, the power plant feels relaxed, ask for pace and it obliges in a cultured, unfussed way. Rover 827, the 2.7-litre Honda-derived V6 is an agreeable, eager engine. Numbers quoted for 827 models around this time are roughly 167 bhp and about 225 Nm, with 0–62 miles per hour in the region of 8.2 seconds and a 133 miles per hour top speed, respectable figures for the class. The V6 has character, a pleasant musical cadence and a willingness to rev. It may not match the BMW in outright mid-range shove on paper, but it is light, eager and makes the Rover feel brisk in everyday driving. On transmissions, the BMW's manual gearbox is a delight for those who want a connected experience. The automatics are competent but slightly long in the tooth compared to later 5-speed autos. Rover often came with a 4-speed automatic as standard on higher trims, smooth and perfectly acceptable for suburban and motorway use, but if you want to extract a little sportiness from the 827, a manual will help. On the road, handling, ride and chassis. BMW 525, this is where the 525 earns its reputation. Rear drive balance, A well-sorted suspension and a chassis that rewards clean inputs make it genuinely enjoyable on twisty B roads. The 525's steering is weighted and communicative. The car resists roll well and rewards precision. If you enjoy driving, the BMW will give you a grin that lasts longer than it really should. That said, the E34 is a grown-up 5 Series. It offers composure rather than wild sportiness. Think clipped, authoritative cornering rather than flamboyant theatrics. Advertisement. Privacy settings. Rover 827. The 827 wants to be comfortable first and nimble second. It soaks up poor surfaces nicely and the steering is light and easy for urban maneuvers. Push hard on winding lanes and the body can lean more than the BMW. The front-wheel drive layout and transverse V6 mean the handling balance is predictable and safe rather than playful. The advantage is that most drivers will find the Rover forgiving rather than demanding, and that's not a bad thing when you consider the saloon's likely intended use. Noise, vibration and harshness. Inside town the Rover's V6 is pleasantly hushed, some might even call it refined, while the BMW's straight-six has a clearer, more mechanical note. At high revs the BMW sounds sportier, the Rover more relaxed. On coarse surfaces the Rover's softer suspension cushions the ride better, whereas the BMW's firmer setup transmits more detail to the cabin, in a way that enthusiasts will enjoy, others may find a touch fussy. Practicalities and family life. For everyday use the Rover's practicality is very strong. Large door openings, comfortable rear seats and a capacious boot make life easy. If you habitually carry passengers in the back, the Rover often feels more thoughtful. The BMW is also practical, but with a bias towards driver and driver comfort. Rear space is good but not class-leading. Boot space is sensible, and the build quality of fixtures means the BMW's cabin tends to age well provided it's been looked after. Reliability, running costs and ownership. Rover's Achilles heel in public perception was reliability in the 1980s. By 1992 the 800 had benefited from improvements and the Honda V6 is generally considered a sturdy, durable unit. Servicing costs for the Rover tend to be lower than for the BMW, and parts are often cheaper, although anything specific to higher trim levels, sterling, can push costs up. BMW ownership is typically more expensive. Parts and labor for a German brand, particularly with more complex engine management and the potential for early electronic quirks, can add up. However, well-maintained 525s are long-lived and many owners find the maintenance spend worth the driving experience. Advertisement. Privacy settings. If you are buying used in the years after 1992, always check the service history and typical wear points. Timing belt forward/chain services, as relevant to engine, camshaft seals, cooling system components, and for the BMW make sure suspension bushes and subframes have not been abused. Rover 827s will be happiest with a documented service history and attention to gearbox and cooling maintenance. Practical advice, not a substitute for a pre-purchase inspection. Who will prefer which? Choose the BMW 525 if you drive for the love of driving and want a confident chassis. You value engineering and sharper dynamics. You accept slightly higher servicing costs for a more rewarding driving experience. Choose the Rover 827 if you want comfortable, agreeable motoring and strong value. Rear passenger comfort and practical day-to-day usability matter. You like the idea of a smooth, characterful V6 without the Teutonic austerity. A few real-world moments. On the motorway the BMW chirps along serenely, the 6's mid-range makes overtaking effortless and the car feels planted at higher speeds. The Rover will happily cruise at motorway speeds too, with the V6 offering a pleasant soundtrack and economical behavior when left in its comfort zone. In traffic the Rover's lighter steering and softer ride win friends. In a queue where speed isn't an option, the Rover feels less demanding. On country lanes the BMW comes alive, point, apply, enjoy. The Rover will follow and keep the occupants comfortable, but you'll feel the limits sooner. If you have a taste for a connected driving experience, the BMW rewards you. If you prioritize comfortable, unruffled progress, the Rover is content. Value now and desirability, 1992 perspective. In 1992 the BMW 525 carried a price premium, as you might expect, but also a stronger residual value among buyers who wanted German engineering. The Rover 827 undercut the BMW on price in most trims and offered a strong specification for the money, especially if you chose a Sterling or Vitesse model, making it a sensible alternative for buyers who wanted the look and presence of a large saloon without the full German premium. Reviews around the time praised Rover for closing the quality gap and for giving buyers something credible to think about. Advertisement. Privacy settings. Common faults to watch for, used buying checklist. BMW 525. Check for suspension wear, drop links, bushes and shocks. Electronic niggles and any history of oil leaks, valve cover, oil filter housing. Ensure the cooling system is healthy, radiator, water pump. Service history and a recent inspection are worth their weight. Rover 827. Watch for any gearbox complaints, automatic boxes should change cleanly. Investigate coolant maintenance and thermostat history, older Rovers can suffer if cooling upkeep was neglected. Check for any electrical gremlins or signs of poor previous repair. A professional pre-purchase inspection will save grief on both cars. Final verdict, which would I choose? If the question is which is the better driver's car, the BMW 525 wins hands down. The 525's chassis balance, steering feel and the Line 6's character make it a more rewarding companion for those who want involvement. If the question is which is the nicer car to live with, the Rover 827 is a brilliant answer, comfortable, pleasantly powered, well packaged and very competitive on value. You'll arrive in both cars, but you'll enjoy the BMW if you enjoy driving, and you'll enjoy the Rover if you prefer to be enjoyed by your car. Both cars had their champions in 1992. BMW for engineering cachet and driving satisfaction, Rover for value, comfort and surprising refinement thanks to Honda's V6. Pick the 525 if you want precision and that straight 6's silky delivery. Pick the 827 if you want civilized, spacious, well-priced executive motoring with a musical V6. Parting shots, a little levity. The BMW is like the sensible, neatly bearded professor who turns up in a crisp jacket and quietly scores everyone else's quizzes. The Rover is the amiable host with the buffet and the comfy sofa. You will be fed, comfortable, and likely to nap. If you want to sneak quietly into a country house hotel and make the valet think you're important, the Rover's presence will do just fine, with the advantage that you'll get in and out of the hotel with less fuss. If you want the valet to salute and the other guests to check their watches in mild envy, the BMW will do the trick. Advertisement. Privacy settings. Appendix, key specs and references. BMW 525, E34, 2.5-litre M50 inline 6, 189 bhp, almost equal to 192 PS, torque almost equal to 245-250 Nm, noted for refined power delivery and competent chassis. Rover 827, 2.7-litre Honda-derived V6, 167 bhp, almost equal to 169 PS, torque almost equal to 225 Nm, 0-62 miles per hour, 8.2s, top speed almost equal to 133 miles per hour. Very refined V6 and comfortable ride.